Hey y'all, Nate here with another recording of me sort of playing another game of War of the Ring. So this was a pretty fun game, and you can kind of see how choices made early on in the game kind of affect the way things work. So we'll start off. I'll sort of show you what we go ahead and do. I'm playing against Bungie, who's an awesome player. Played against them once. I'm sort of just getting started. So I start off with Kindred of Glorfindel, as well as Mirror of Galadriel. Kindred of Glorfindel, fine card, playable, which is nice, and can also give you more strategy cards, and then Mirror of Galadriel, which can be useful. Um, my opponent starts off with Stormcrow, and then Black Captain Commands. So Black Captain Commands is really good because it's one of these cards that can take a Palantir and turn it into an attack. And you'll see my opponent allocate 0 eyes first turn. And so this tells you that, this opponent's trying to rush. They're saying, hey, let's race. Fellowship, try to dunk the ring as fast as you can. You're probably going to have an easy time. And I'm going to go ahead and try to make as many attacks as possible. So you can see my opponent gets a pretty balanced roll, 3 musters, which is pretty cool. And I get 3 movement against 1 eye. So let's go ahead and see what happens. So I start off by passing, which is totally fine. And my opponent immediately musters Sauron. Okay, cool, totally fine. Pass again. And they move towards Dew, which is these 3 territories up here, which have 5 points. And at this point, I make kind of a crucial decision. So, and often an early move that you do is moving your, single army unit from Carrick into Old Forest Road, because there's a chance that this guy will survive. There's about a 50% chance that they'll survive, a little bit less than 50. They're rolling 6 die, they're trying to get 1/6, so it's definitely less than a 50% chance that they will survive. But if they do survive, then you'll get 1 more troop into Woodland Realm. But this is a major sacrifice because if I want to go ahead and get 1 troop in, I'll need to use my Will of the West, and I can only move twice this turn. So you can kind of think about what you would do in this situation, and sort of see what I decide to do. And I decide to actually move my troops here, which is interesting. And I think in hindsight, I probably wouldn't do that. I think if you're against 1 eye and your opponent is racing you like this, I would probably go ahead and try to get. I would try to get all of your troops. I would try to move. I would just try to move. Regardless, my opponent attacked Old Forest Road. If I had scouts, I think this would have been a good move, but I don't have scouts. They go ahead and they get a hit. And I get 1 hit back, and then they move in. I move once. They hit me on the first move. They get an eye, so it looks pretty terrible for me to begin with. I take the. I guess I don't flip things. I take the corruption. I don't want to lose Gandalf to a 1 initially, especially it's a rough start. My opponent takes Carrick, and it's strange because they use the muster die to do this. And so I think to myself, they're not going to go ahead and get Sauron this early. So it's kind of interesting. I had the Fellowship. They go ahead and attack Dew or Dale. They play a Great Host, which is great. That guarantees their hit. They get the hit. They move in. It brings the North to war. You can kind of see what's going to happen. I play Kindred of Glorfindel. I think this is fine. You can think to yourself whether you would have mustered the elves or not. Rivendell is not under attack. This uses an elven elite. Maybe this is not a good play. But it does allow me to draw another strategy card, which gives me Thranduil's Archers, which is a phenomenal card to see early. And my opponent gets the Witch King, which is kind of cool. Turn 1 Witch King, no Saruman. So I think it's kind of cool. I like this play quite a lot because it got them moving, it got them their extra die, and it means any musters that they roll later on are going to be still powerful. So my opponent draws Shadows of the Misty Mountain. Great card to see early. So this can go ahead and get people into Moria to allow you to take Lorien, which is harder now that you've moved your army from Dol Guldur out. They also get Lure of the Ring, which you can kind of see they're probably not going to care about. I get Elven Cloaks and then Immerhill. Always good cards to see to go ahead and defend Dol Amroth early. And then my opponent goes ahead and again, they allocate just one eye because I moved last turn, and then they roll. So I get, again, a phenomenal set of movement here. 2 moves, Will of the West, and a single Palantir. I immediately start by moving. Yeah, this is fine. You could think to yourself whether you would rather play with the Palantir or whether you would prefer not to. There are some rationales to not to. I do think in this case I probably should have played Palantir first. But my idea is that if I get hit and I get a reveal and Gandalf dies, I could get Strider. So they missed. Yep, my opponent musters Saruman. I play Thranduil's Archers, which is great. I get Círdan Ships in Dane Ironfoot's card. So I'm feeling very confident in Do, as I've gotten both of the reinforcement cards that make it nice. I also have Círdan Ships. So I've gotten some very good draws. My opponent also did hit me on my first move out, so could have been better. I pass. My opponent starts to move towards Gondor, which I'm feeling a little bit nervous about because I don't have any musters for Gondor. I only have this Will of the West. My opponent takes that back. I guess they first muster some folks. Then they make this move. They continue to move towards both Moria and Gondor, knowing they have shadows on the Misty Mountain. This makes a ton of sense, so that they can take out Lorien eventually. I go ahead and I move again. They roll a 6 and they draw a 3. So this is perfect. I can go ahead and kill Gandalf to this. I have the Will of the West showing. I can get Gandalf this turn. My opponent attacks another Gileath, which is a great move because I'll either need to muster in Minas Tirith or they will just be able to put it under siege. I do no card. Fortunately, they only get 1 hit, and I'm able to retreat back into Minas Tirith. So it's pretty good. And move on to our next turn. And pretty good. So yeah, my opponent has only taken 1 point. They're going to have a hard time taking Do. I have been hit early, but I also have Gandalf. So I'm feeling pretty confident right now that things are going well. My opponent gets Give It to Us and Horde from the East, which is pretty good. I get, what do I get? I get Ints and Faramir's Rangers. Unfortunately, Faramir's Rangers 1 turn too late. Fellowship is ready. I get a phenomenal roll. Oh, no, that was the previous roll. I get this, which is pretty good. And I pass immediately. So here, there are some thoughts here on why you should pass or why you should not pass. So, the Fellowship is kind of out in the open. If I don't want a Nazgul on them, then I should probably maybe not pass. Then again, the Witch King seems to be in a position where they want to be. I think, what else? They do have a ton of movement and a ton of musters. And I do think to myself that perhaps they'll be able to put Dol Amroth under siege this turn. So perhaps giving 1 muster to Gondor might be pretty useful. Let's go ahead and prevent that from happening. But anyways, they go ahead and they muster Southrons once. At this point, I go ahead and I muster Gondor down. So there's some logic to this. So imagine that they have Corsairs of Umbar, and I don't muster Gondor down at this point. They can move over to Umbar, and I guess they can just take Dol Amroth. Useless. So there's, I don't really know why I muster them at this point. It seems like I should just pass and wait till they actually attack Pelargir or Minas Tirith. If they attack Pelargir, I think that's totally fine. I can muster someone Dol Amroth. I think I probably should have waited here. but But I go ahead and do this, then they attack Minas Tirith. Obviously, they don't want that happening. I move the Fellowship. They miss. They move closer to Pelargir, and they start moving up towards Dew to get more reinforcements up there. I move the Fellowship one more time, which I think is fine. You want to get 3 movements against One Eye if you can. We're going through Moria, so I want to make sure to get completely through Moria. They miss again. Continues to move armies. Pass. They get the South Runs all the way to war. They attack Pelargir, which is totally fine. They take Pelargir. And now at this point, it kind of sucks because if I had waited with my other army muster, I could have been able to recruit more troops. I could have used my Palantir to play Imrahil, which would have been good regardless. So, again, it's these small mistakes that kind of continually add up. I go ahead and I recruit. I recruit, 2 infantry, one before, one later, and this is to just sort of make their advance a little bit more costly. I think that's fine. You could just consider recruiting an elite in Dol Amroth as well. They attack Lamadon. They get the hit. I get nothing back. I play Imrahil. And then they put Dol Amroth under siege. And that is this turn. So again, almost all of Gondor is under siege. And they don't have mass. Again, they're facing somewhat beefy choices here. Both of these places are not necessarily easy. They both have 6 health in them, and they're attacking, in one case, with 12, which should be enough. In the other case, a little bit less than 12, which might not be enough, so 11. So both are going to be hard-fought sieges, and they don't have any reinforcements that they can have here. I go ahead, I get more ints, which, more ints. I think, I discard Fear Fire Foes. The North is already at war. Shield Wall is fine in case they actually crash in. I've got double ints, so if they ever do crash in, it's going to be a scary thing for me to do Gandalf. I declare my Fellowship, and we do some rolls. My opponent continues adding very few eyes. I get another great roll. And so I move first. I think something that I could have done here is I could have mustered an elite in Lossarnach. I think that wouldn't have been terrible. They could have retreated to Osgiliath out of Lossarnach if they were attacked. It would cost my opponent a die because I could have easily taken Pelargir. And what else am I going to do with this army muster? So I do think, or just even muster, perhaps there's Dane Ironfoot's Guard, but other than that, there's really nothing I want to do with it. So I think mustering Lossarnach would have been the better choice here. But instead, I move the Fellowship. There's reasons for this. There's no one on me. There's no ring rates on me, so it's a good time to move. They do hit me. I just take the Corruption. My opponent takes Lossarnach, so this won't happen. I move the Dwarfs into Iron Hills and into Forge of Isen. I think these are great moves. My opponent attacks Minas Tirith. No, they don't. They play Day Without Dawn. So another mistake here. I should have acted with my... So the idea here is that I moved once. And if I want to get into Mordor next turn, I probably should move one more time. And they want to prevent this by killing my Will of the West. Fine. I think this is fine. As you'll see later on, it is really nice for me to not be scared of Day Without Dawn in the future. And so, it does kind of suck this turn, but it's not the end of the world. So I pass. They play Shadows on the Misty Mountain, getting ready for Lorien. I pass again. They play Horde from the East, getting ready for Erebor. They move up towards Erebor and Dew. I give my opponent a ring to move again. So, obviously, it went well for my opponent. They got a ring basically for for Day Without Dawn. A 1 reveal, I take the damage. And I decide on, they put Erebor under siege, and I decide whether I want to hide with this Palantir or not. And I decide to not hide with the Palantir. And again, you can think what you would do in this situation. You could play Dane Ironfoot's Guard right now, or you could hide and assume that you will get the Palantir next turn. But I play Dane Ironfoot's Guard now. I just don't want this to be under siege while if I'm not able to get them in there. So they attack Minas Tirith. I play Faramir's Rangers. Not going to get much use of it at the moment. Of course, getting that guy into Loshonok, retreating into Osgiliath, and then playing Faramir's Rangers could have been pretty strong, but I did not. My opponent gets 0 hits. I get 3 hits back, and Minas Tirith is looking very safe, so it's pretty cool. My opponent gets Shadow Lengthens, which is great. A really good reinforcement card. They also got Palantir of Orthanc. I go ahead and get Deadman of Dunharrow and Sword Denariador. So let's go ahead and get these rolls. So here are the rolls. And at this point, think about this. I guess think pretty hard of what you would do. You could get into Mordor this turn, possibly. There's 1, 2, 3, plus a hide with Strider. You could just go directly into Mordor and race. But you also have a Will of the West, and you have Dead Men of Dunharrow. So technically, you could go ahead and get Aragorn this turn. And there's no one next to Pelargir. Not only is there no one next to Pelargir, but the troops that they have in Gondor at the moment are light, and there's no one to reinforce it. So if we get Dead Men of Dunharrow down there, we'll get 3 troops, and then we can continue to muster up. Not only that, but eventually Círdan ships will be pretty useful. So you can think about what you do. I hide, pretty good first action regardless. I think you probably want to hide even if you're going to be playing Dead Men of Dunharrow. My opponent goes ahead and does some stuff. They play Black Captain Commands and start trying to take out Dol Amroth. Advantageous position. Always good to play advantageous position against strategy cards. They get 0 hits. I get 2 hits back, which is good. They press. Don't play anything. The game was freezing for me, blah, blah, blah. They get a good roll. So I get 3 hits. I get 3 hits back. Again, if the Elves were at war, I would be in a great position to play just Círdan ships here, and I don't think they would take Dol Amroth. I mean, there is something to say that, like, perhaps I could have, at this point, I could have had Aragorn down there with 3 guys in Pelargir, maybe taking it back pretty easily. So I decide to move in this case, and I get revealed. So I decided instead of getting Aragorn, I'm going to try to make it into Mordor this turn. So I hid and I got revealed again. I move here. It's looking less likely that I'm going to get into Mordor. But there were 3 eyes, so perhaps this was the turn to really get Strider. Hard to say. I pass. My opponent gets more troops in Moria to take Dol Amroth. I hide. And at this point, I separate Strider. So again, a lot of this game is having the confidence to do something, one thing, and just follow through on it. And I think I should have had the confidence to follow through this turn on just getting Strider immediately. Either have the confidence to follow through and getting Strider, or have the confidence to get into Mordor this turn. Either or. But I decided to do a middle path. And I separate Strider. My opponent gets towards Lorien and Dew, and I move again. So ultimately, I wouldn't have gotten into Mordor. I got another reveal. So perhaps I should have seen Three Eyes and immediately gotten Strider this turn into Aragorn and started mustering up Gondor. It would have been pretty strong, and I wouldn't have been too different. I guess I would have been a couple moves out, but again, I was rolling into Three Eyes, so maybe it would have been better to wait. My opponent attacks Dol Amroth. They finally get what they need. They get 3 hits. I get 3 hits back, which is important. And they get Flocks of Crebain and Return of the Witch King, which is Swarm of Bats, basically. I get Smeagol Help's Nice Master and Wisdom of Elrond. You can think what you discard. I discarded Elven Cloaks. So I get a good roll. I get 1, 2, 3 movement, plenty of movement to go ahead and get into Mordor. And my opponent gets 4 eyes. So perhaps better that I did this. Well, you can kind of see maybe perhaps better that I did this whole half strategy because now they have 4 eyes. So I don't want to be moving into this. And my opponent gets 2 Palantirs, 4 eyes. This is a terrible roll for them. If there were chances of a Free People military victory, it would be this turn. If the elves were at war, I would certainly be thinking about it because they got really nothing to go ahead and defend themselves. But these are the turns that you hope for as the Fellowship or as the Free People to go ahead and take advantage of it. So I go ahead and hide. My opponent continues to go towards the north. I go ahead and move once as the Fellowship. I draw 2. Happy to go ahead and lose Gimli. My opponent puts Lorien under siege. Totally good move. And at this point, I think to myself, do I want to move one more time and avoid cruel weather? And my opponent has what are 4 character cards in their hand. Or do I want to try to get Aragorn as sort of best I can? And I decide to myself that I want to get Aragorn. I don't have a Will of the West showing. That being said, I see Pelargir is open. I see that I can muster an elite. So to me, this seems like a really good way to retake Gondor. So I play Deadman. I get my 3 guys here. My opponent's down to 3 victory points. They move all their Nazgul out. And I muster an elite in Pelargir. My opponent plays Grond over in Lorien. The combat goes really poorly for them. I play Confusion. And again, maybe I shouldn't have played Confusion here. Lorien is kind of doomed to fall anyways. So perhaps I should have saved this card for some of the fights up in Dew, where I have more troops and I'm sort of better able to win these fights. But the first combat roll went so bad that I decided to play it. And what looked to be a really decisive fight in Lorien is turning into something that could be good. So it's 4 versus, I guess 6, 7, 8. So it could go either way. No card, they get no hits. They get 1 hit, and so it's not bad. I play Smeagol Help's Nice Master, fine card. Perhaps I should have hidden with this and gotten more musters. So, anyways, my opponent sort of jokes around if cruel weather were there, but instead they play On They Went. I'm in Mordor, and we start another turn. I get Gwahir Windlord. Fine. Not likely to be used this game. Last battle, daylight, great combat effect. My opponent rolls, gets 3 eyes. I roll and get this awesome roll. Let's look at my opponent's cards. I got Dreadful Spells, phenomenal. Orcs Multiplying, again, great. So they've got a lot of cards to go ahead and use in this case. And I need to, again, decide what I want to do. If we look at the hunt pool is pretty good, actually. It's got a lot of fairly weak tiles. It has a couple of 3s, but those are fine. What I need to do is I need to get rid of as many of my Fellowship companions as possible to get down to Gollum to make all of these tiles, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, be very good tiles. I mean, there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phenomenal tiles, 7 phenomenal tiles. So the hunt pool is looking very good. And my opponent only has 4 victory points. yeah, things are looking pretty good for the good old fellowship. I crown Strider. Maybe this is a mistake. I think, imagine if I crowned him 2 turns ago, right? There's a very strong likelihood that I would have been in Mordor this turn. I would have had 2 extra die. I think 2 turns ago, I should have crowned Aragorn, and I think I would have been in a better position. Um, my opponent goes ahead and attacks Woodland Realm, which is totally fine. I pass. My opponent attacks Lorien. I play Daylight. They play Swarm of Bats. Phenomenal card play on my opponent's part. And they finally get the 6s they were looking for. 4 hits immediately, kills Lorien. It could have gone either way. My opponent had good card play. I move. I get a 3. Totally fine. I sack Legolas. I'm up to 5 corruption. I'm at what is negative, or I'm at 1 corruption at the second step of Mordor, and the hunt pool is looking pretty favorable. I'm feeling pretty good. My opponent gets Mouth of Sauron. I kind of know that like this turn they're definitely not winning. I move again. I get a 1 reveal. I go ahead and take a random. I want to get to Gollum ASAP. My opponent moves all of their Witch King people and Nazgul all around. I play Círdan ships onto Aragorn, which is good. I want to be able to take back Dol Amroth and or stop the siege on Minas Tirith with this force down here. Because the way I'm sort of reading this is they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points from things that they could take easily. Minas Tirith is not going to fall. And Erebor is going to be hard. So as long as I am able to, well, at 9 also from Dale, as long as I am able to, and Edoras as well, as long as I'm able to take back Dol Amroth, I should be totally fine. So I play Círdan ships here. Get a honkin' force. They attack Woodland Realm. It does not go well for me. Let's just sort of say that. And Woodland Realm falls. And I give him a ring to hide again. So this is really a question. You could have gone towards Dol Amroth. Probably the right move to make. Here's the deal. I'm thinking to myself, Dol Amroth, they're never going to see any more troops. I can take these 3 troops. This is not going to be crazy. I'm going to come in with 3 elites plus Aragorn. I will be okay. And some individual guys. And again, if I had crowned Aragorn a turn before, this force would have been massive. I probably could have already taken back Dol Amroth and started to remuster Gondor and basically force all of the troops out of Gondor. Forcing them to come at a different area, either Rivendell or into Rohan. If they went into Rohan, I've got these double in cards in my hand. It's kind of exactly what I want. But I don't. They do a great move. They abandon Minas Tirith. This is a great, and they start heading towards Edoras. I think that's really good. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're going to get Edoras next turn. They're going to get most likely Erebor next turn. I have basically 2 outs. I will either need to retake Dol Amroth, or I will need to dunk the ring. And my opponent gets the 1 card kind of they need, Corsairs of Umbar, which is phenomenal. This is the only way that they were going to reinforce Dol Amroth, and they were able to do it. I get File, I get Path of Woes, kind of useless cards. My opponent gets infinite attacks, basically. As many attacks as they need. They get 1 eye. And I get a ton of movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movement for 1, 2, 3 spaces. So I'm thinking to myself, well, like I could hit a red and could get revealed and would still get in. So I think to myself, well, my chances of getting in this turn are incredibly high. So I should just get in. Now remember, last turn I hid with a ring. Instead, I could have had Strider in Lamedon right this turn, and ready to go ahead and retake Dol Amroth. Probably what I could have done with my first action. I decide not. I decide Dunking the Ring is a really good move. I go ahead and I get Smeagol Helps Knight's Master. I'm feeling very, very confident. The hunt pool, again, is phenomenal. I am 1-2 steps out from Mordor. My opponent has, there's really, it's looking really good. Let's go ahead and show what my opponent does next. They play Give It to Us. So the hunt pool is changed. And kind of here's what it's looking. If I get an eye, fine. It doesn't matter. I move forward. So you can kind of math this out. Let's say I get one red tile and then any combination of any of the other tiles. So I get an eye, I get revealed, I hide, I get a red tile. So that's 1, 2, 3 movement. And I'd still have one more move, and I could have dunked at that point. So if I'd gotten the red 3 and any other tile, and any tiles, I would have been fine. If I had gotten the red 1, I would need to have not been revealed once. So basically, I'm looking for, drawing from this, I'm looking to basically not get the red 1. What are my chances of not getting the red 1? Which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, 11 divided by 12 times, 10 divided by 11 or whatever it is. And that's the chances of not getting those each time. So anyways, I think to myself, and rightly so, that this is a pretty guaranteed in, and I try to go for it. So I move again, and I get the red 3, which is fine. I kill the rest of the people. I get Gollum. I move back. I need to not get the red 1, basically, for the rest. And at that point, I will be totally fine. They draw a character card, trying to basically get more ways to stop me. I think to myself, what are the chances? and I get the red 1. And at this point, I cannot get up Mount Doom. There's nothing I can do to go ahead and get up. I could hide, and I could move one more time. That's it. So what are my choices? I can basically take back Dol Amroth. And my opponent musters in Umbar. And at this point, I know, why do you muster in Umbar? Maybe you want to go to whatever, this Western Harondor or whatever, and try to retake Pelargir. But the thing that I think of is its Corsairs. And I pass. My opponent does some moves. I don't even know why I pass. It's kind of useless. I pass again. My opponent attacks Erebor, plays Sudden Strike. I get 1 hit. They play Onslaught. I get a phenomenal roll, 4 hits. So it's looking pretty good. They do a big old Onslaught. They get 2 hits, which is better than what you'd expect from Onslaught. You'd expect just 1. But I also got just infinite hits beforehand. And my dwarves are looking good. I pass. They go ahead and they take what they need. And I move out. I move out with my troops. I go into Helm's Deep just in case. They play Corsairs, of course. And this is where I'm like, my chances of winning just went from, very likely, probably 90% chance, to getting the red tile, to getting Corsairs of Umbar. And, that's the way it goes. I could have, again, if I were playing this just a little bit better, I could have been 1 turn earlier with Aragorn. I'm 100% sure that I could have retaken Dol Amroth. But anyways, if I don't, I try to put Dol Amroth under siege. My opponent does a good use of Ringwraiths of Brawn to get more leadership in there, which is actually really important. My opponent attacks Erebor again. The dwarves hold them off as best they can. It's actually, they do a very, very mighty job. I only get one hit. I get 2 hits back. You know, there's a chance that they will survive, a small chance. And I attack the Lamroth. And on my first roll, I get 3 hits into the Lamroth. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. You know, it's not so bad. I press. And I have no more cards, and I only get 1 hit. And at this point, and my opponent gets 2 hits. And at this point, I'm basically like, well, you know, what are the chances? I have 1 chance to do it. I need to get 2 6s on 4 die, and you know, it doesn't matter if Aragorn dies here. It's fine. I mean, I would lose anyway. You know, I want to have at least 2 outs. You know, taking Dol Amroth and hitting Aragorn. And nope, I don't get it. Aragorn dies, and Dol Amroth trying to retake Gondor for his people, and it's 1 turn too slow probably. My opponent does Erebor. It's close. It was down to the last reroll, and a GG. So again, I had a lot of outs this game. I had great combat rolls on luck. Unfortunately, Mordor did not go well for me. But there were lots of little mistakes that I made throughout the game that really could have turned the tide. So I hope you guys like this. I hope this also shows like a very, you know, one thing that you'll notice is that my fellowship health was doing great. And instead of just kind of like doubling down on the fellowship health, I tried to balance it out by separating Aragorn or Strider, which I think was a good move, ultimately speaking. Separating Strider, if I'd done it 1 turn earlier, if I were a little bit more confident about it, it would have bought me a full turn, maybe 2 turns of staying alive in this game. Because after this, my opponent had nowhere to go except for into Rohan. And with Rohan, I would have almost certainly killed Saruman. And I had Gwahir, so I could have put Gandalf inside of Helm's Deep. It would have been a very hard fight for my opponent. So definitely, if you're, but this is the whole game. You know, if you are Shadow and you are behind on corruption, just give up. Go for a fast military. But if you're free people and you're ahead on corruption, you can always rebalance it by removing Strider from the party and giving yourself a major advantage by extra die. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. Obviously, very few people watch these, but you know, I always enjoy doing these, and I feel like I learned something each time. Okay, thanks, y'all.